The Galactic database was often spoken of in hushed tones, even among the most advanced civilizations. It was a repository of knowledge, a living chronicle of the universe's collective understanding. Each species, upon reaching a certain technological and intellectual milestone, was granted access. Yet the humans, those curious, unpredictable beings, had always been an anomaly. Their contributions were sporadic, cryptic, and, in the eyes of most galactic scholars, entirely underwhelming. They were gone now, presumed extinct after the catastrophic collapse of their homeworld centuries ago. But their final entry had appeared unexpectedly, and its contents were locked behind layers of encryption far beyond the reach of even the most advanced civilizations. Aboard the research vessel Orion's Veil, 3 men stood at the forefront of deciphering this mystery. Commander Eric Valrin, a seasoned veteran of interstellar exploration, gazed at the holographic projection of the database entry with a frown etched deeply into his face. He had little patience for riddles, and this assignment, decoding humanity's enigmatic farewell, felt more like a wild goose chase than a matter of scientific significance. "Tell me again why this is worth our time," Valrin said, his voice heavy with skepticism. He leaned back in his chair, his broad shoulders casting long shadows under the dim light of the command deck. Dr. Laurent Vesic, the team's xenoanthropologist, did not look up from the interface he was feverishly analyzing. "Because, Commander, this isn't just any entry. It's encrypted with a method we've never seen before. Layers upon layers of quantum locks. The kind of security that suggests they were hiding something far beyond ordinary knowledge. Or they just wanted to show off one last time before they disappeared," Valrin countered. The youngest of the trio, Lieutenant Kalen Rhine, sat cross-legged on the floor near a console, typing rapidly. "Or maybe they were protecting something they didn't want anyone else to find," he said, his voice tinged with excitement. "I mean, doesn't it strike you as odd? All their previous entries were basic. Agriculture techniques, some rudimentary theories on physics, a recipe for something called pizza." "Pizza?" Valrin interrupted, arching an eyebrow. "Yeah," Rhine grinned. "Apparently it was a big deal for them. But then this. Their last message. Completely out of character. It's like they flipped a switch." Valrin rubbed his temples. "So, what's the message? Do we have anything yet? Or are we still chasing ghosts?" Rhine tapped a final sequence of commands into the console. The holographic display flickered, then stabilized, revealing a single sentence that hung in the air like a challenge. "We were only playing with you." The room fell into silence as the words sank in. Vesic, who had been pacing moments earlier, froze mid-step. Valrin's brow furrowed, his mind racing to make sense of the phrase. Rhine was the first to speak. "What does that even mean?" "It means," Vesic said slowly, his tone filled with both awe and frustration, "that humans were even more infuriating in death than they were in life." Valrin leaned forward, staring at the sentence as if sheer willpower could force it to yield more answers. "Playing with us? Are they implying they were holding something back? That everything we knew about them was a facade?" Vesic nodded. "It fits. Think about it. Humans always seemed off. They advanced far slower than other species. They didn't seek galactic dominance or knowledge the way we expected, but they survived conflicts they had no business surviving. And now this. Maybe their so-called weakness was intentional." Rhine's fingers danced across the console again, pulling up historical records from the database. "I always thought it was weird how their technology seemed to jump forward in bursts," he said, "like they were deliberately pacing themselves. There's this one war, the Orion border skirmish, where they suddenly fielded fleets with energy shielding no one had seen before. And then, just as suddenly, they stopped using it. They wanted to appear harmless," Vesic mused. "A prey species. But why?" "Because predators don't target prey that isn't worth the effort," Valrin said grimly. "If humans were stronger than they let on, they might have hidden it to avoid becoming a threat. Keep their heads down. Stay overlooked." The thought sent a chill through the room. For centuries, Humanity had been dismissed as a curiosity, an odd, underachieving species that never quite lived up to the galactic standard. But what if that was exactly what they wanted everyone to believe? Ryan broke the silence. So, what do we do now? Vesic stepped closer to the holographic display, his gaze fixed on the glowing words. We dig deeper. That phrase, it's not just a taunt. It's a breadcrumb. Humans were storytellers. They loved their games, their puzzles. This is one last riddle, and I intend to solve it. Valrin's skepticism was giving way to a grudging curiosity. He had spent decades navigating the stars, facing dangers most would never comprehend, but this felt different. It wasn't just a mission. It was a challenge, one left by a species that might have been far more than anyone had ever suspected. Fine, he said at last. But let's be clear. If this turns out to be some elaborate joke, I'm holding both of you responsible. Ryan smirked. Noted, sir. As Vesic began running deeper scans on the database entry, the lights on the command deck dimmed briefly. A faint hum resonated through the ship, a sign that the decryption process was engaging systems far beyond their standard capabilities. It would take hours, maybe even days, to unravel the full contents of the entry, but the first step had been taken. Valrin rose from his seat, casting one last glance at the enigmatic message. Playing with us, he muttered under his breath. Let's hope they're done playing. In the silence that followed, the weight of their discovery settled over them. Somewhere in the depths of the Galactic database, buried beneath layers of encryption and misdirection, lay the truth about humanity's final legacy. Whether it was a warning, a revelation, or a trap, one thing was certain. The humans in death were just as maddening as they had been in life, and perhaps just as dangerous. The holographic display flared to life, casting ghostly reflections across the dimly lit chamber. The figures of Commander Eric Valrin, Dr. Laurent Vesic, and Lieutenant Kalen Ryan stood still, each one transfixed by the projection unfolding before them. The encoded human entry, unlocked after hours of painstaking effort, revealed more than they had anticipated, and far more than they were prepared to comprehend. At the center of the projection stood a man, or at least what appeared to be one. His presence was commanding, his features sharp and resolute, and his piercing gaze seemed to transcend the centuries separating him from his audience. He wore a uniform devoid of insignias, but undeniably human in design, functional, understated, yet purposeful. I am Elias Kale, the figure began, his voice rich and steady, carrying an air of authority that demanded attention. If you are seeing this, it means you have unlocked the final entry of humanity in the Galactic database. It also means you are not ready for what comes next. Valrin exchanged a glance with Vesic, his jaw tightening. Vesic's fingers hovered over the controls, eager to dissect every detail of the message, but the commander motioned for him to wait. Kale's voice continued, filling the silence with an ominous weight. For centuries, we observed you, all of you. We watched as the galaxy's civilizations expanded, conquered, and consumed. You dismissed us, underestimated us, and in doing so, allowed us to thrive in ways you could not imagine. Every step we took, every move we made, was calculated, not to dominate, but to endure. Kale's words seemed to pulse with an undeniable truth, and Vesic felt a chill crawl up his spine. He's not just recounting history, Vesic muttered under his breath. He's justifying it. Kale's expression darkened slightly. You see, humans understood something fundamental about survival. Strength is not always measured in fleets or firepower. It is measured in control, in perception. We let you think we were weak. We let you believe we were fragile. And in doing so, we became invisible. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Invisible? They were anything but. They were involved in conflicts, treaties, trade. On their terms, Vesic interjected, his tone sharp. Look at the data. Every interaction they had with the galaxy was deliberate, controlled. They revealed only what they wanted others to see. Kale's projection turned, as if addressing the room directly. You are likely wondering why we chose to leave this message. The truth is simple. It was not for you. It was for us. A record of what we were and what we achieved. But if you have found this, then perhaps it serves another purpose. To remind you of what you overlooked. The hologram shifted, showing glimpses of human history. Fleets of starships emerging from the darkness, bristling with technology that defied understanding. Vast cities hidden beneath planetary surfaces, powered by energy sources that seemed inexhaustible. And then, abruptly, the scenes grew darker. Explosions, collapsed structures, a world engulfed in chaos. Our end, Kale said, his voice softer now, tinged with something that might have been regret. Or so you would believe. But extinction is not always a conclusion it seems to be. Sometimes, it is merely the beginning of something greater. Valrin stepped forward, his expression grim. What does that mean? He demanded, as if Kale could hear him. Is he saying they aren't extinct? Vesic shook his head, his mind racing to piece together the implications. It's ambiguous. He could be speaking figuratively, or he could be suggesting that humanity evolved into something else entirely. Ryan was glued to the display, his youthful enthusiasm now tempered by a growing unease. If they're out there, somewhere, why stay hidden? Why leave this message instead of revealing themselves? The hologram flickered again, returning to Kale's impassive face. We were only playing with you, he repeated, the words sending a shiver through the room. For us, survival was not merely an instinct. It was an art. And like any art, it required a mastery of deception. While you squabbled over territory and resources, we mastered the unseen, the unheard, the unthinkable. Valrin's fist clenched. He hated riddles, and this entire message felt like a trap, an elaborate game designed to keep them guessing. Yet he couldn't deny the brilliance behind it. If humans had truly operated on this level, they had outmaneuvered the galaxy at every turn without anyone realizing it. Kale's figure began to fade, but his final words hung in the air like a verdict. If you choose to pursue us, know this. We left this record not as an invitation, but as a warning. There are places you are not meant to go, truths you are not meant to uncover, and games you are not meant to win. The hologram disappeared, leaving the room in silence. For a moment, no one spoke. The faint hum of the ship's systems was the only sound, a reminder of their isolation amidst the endless void of space. What the hell did we just watch? Ryan finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. A legacy, Vesic replied, his tone reverent. A warning. Maybe both. Whatever it is, it changes everything we thought we knew about them. Valrin turned away from the now dormant display, his expression unreadable. It's a trap, he said flatly, or a distraction. Humans were masters of misdirection, by their own admission. They want us to chase ghosts while they sit back and watch. Or, Vesic countered, it's the truth. And if it is, we'd be fools to ignore it. Valrin's eyes narrowed. He had spent a lifetime making decisions under pressure, weighing risks against rewards. But this was different. The stakes were not just personal. They were existential. If Kale's words were true, then humanity had been playing a game the rest of the galaxy didn't even know existed. And now, centuries after their disappearance, they were still winning. Commander, Ryan said hesitantly, what do we do? For a long moment, Valrin said nothing. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he turned back to face his crew. We follow the trail, he said, but we do it on our terms. If they're watching, let's show them we're not just pawns on their board. Vesic smiled faintly, a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. Then let's see where this game takes us. The ship's engines thrummed to life, a low, steady pulse that carried with it the weight of their decision. Somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, lay the truth about humanity's legacy. And whether it was a revelation, a warning, or a trap, they were determined to uncover it. The ship trembled as the final sequence of the jump drive powered down, and the crew of Orion's Veil emerged from hyperspace into a region of space unlike anything they had seen before. The stars here burned brighter, their light refracted strangely through dense, shimmering clouds of what appeared to be some kind of energy field. Instruments on the bridge screamed with warnings, their readings erratic and incomprehensible. Commander Eric Valrin stood at the viewport, his jaw tightening as he surveyed the expanse before them. "This isn't just uncharted space," he said, his voice steady despite the tension gripping the crew. "This is engineered." Dr. Laurent Vesic, seated at his station, frantically analyzed the data flooding in. "Engineered?" he repeated, his tone incredulous. "Commander, the energy density alone. This shouldn't even be possible. It's like the laws of physics have been rewritten here." Lieutenant Kalen Ryan, wide-eyed and visibly unsettled, scanned the ship's readings from his console. "It's not just the energy fields," he said. "The sensors are picking up structures. Massive ones. But they're not solid. They're fluctuating, like they're phasing in and out of existence." Valrin stepped back from the viewport, turning to Vesic. "Any sign of a threat?" Vesic shook his head. "No weapon signatures. No hostiles. But I can't say that makes me feel any better. Whatever this place is, it's beyond anything we've encountered." "This has to be it," Ryan said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and apprehension. "This is what the message was leading us to. Their last game." The commander's gaze hardened. The cryptic warning from Elias Kale echoed in his mind. "There are places you are not meant to go." And yet, here they were. He had made the decision to pursue this path, and now he felt the weight of that choice pressing down on him. "Prepare a probe," Valrin ordered. "We need to get closer, but I'm not risking the ship until we know what we're dealing with." Ryan nodded and began the launch sequence. Within moments, the probe was fired into the glowing energy field ahead. The crew watched in tense silence as it disappeared into the swirling void. At first, there was nothing, just static on the monitors and a low hum from the ship systems. Then, the probe's feed stabilized, revealing a breathtaking sight. Enormous structures, their surfaces flowing like liquid metal, floated amidst the energy clouds. They were unlike anything ever cataloged, organic and mechanical all at once, their designs impossibly intricate, as if they had been shaped by both nature and intent. "They're alive," Vesic said softly, leaning closer to the monitor. "Or something close to it. These structures, they're not just constructs. They're functioning on a level we can't even begin to understand." Valrin frowned. "And the humans built them?" "Maybe," Vesic replied. "Or maybe they found them. Either way, this wasn't meant to be discovered. Not by us." The probe's feed began to distort, static creeping across the screen. Then, without warning, the transmission cut out entirely. The crew exchanged uneasy glances as the silence stretched on, heavy and oppressive. "Commander," Ryan said hesitantly, "we just lost contact with the probe." "I noticed, Lieutenant," Valrin replied tersely. He turned to Vesic. "Can you get it back?" Before Vesic could answer, the ship's lights flickered and a low rumble echoed through the hull. The air on the bridge grew thick, charged with a strange energy that seemed to press against their very thoughts. Then a voice, deep, resonant, and unmistakably human, spoke through the ship's comm system. "You were warned." The crew froze, every muscle tensed as the words reverberated through the ship. Valrin's hand instinctively went to the weapon at his side, though he knew it would be useless here. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. There was no immediate response. Instead, the holographic display at the center of the bridge flared to life, showing a figure shrouded in light. It was Elias Kale, or perhaps just another recording. Though this time, the projection seemed more vivid, more present, as if the man himself stood before them. "You've come farther than we expected," Kale said, his tone unreadable. "Few would have followed the trail this far. Fewer still would have survived the journey. But you've made it. And now, you must decide." "Decide what?" Valrin demanded. His voice was steady, but the tension in his frame betrayed his unease. To turn back, Kale said simply, or to see the truth. Vesic stepped forward, his curiosity overcoming his fear. What truth? What is this place? Kale's expression shifted, a faint trace of something resembling sadness crossing his face. This is what remains of us, of humanity, a refuge, a sanctuary, and a prison all at once. We built this place to escape, to evolve. But not all who entered were ready for what they found. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Vesic's mind raced, trying to piece together the implications. You mean humanity survived here? Beyond extinction? Kale nodded, in a manner of speaking. But survival came at a cost. To become what we are now, we had to leave behind what we were. It is not a choice we made lightly. Valrin's jaw tightened. If you're so far beyond us, why leave this message? Why draw us here? To test you, Kale replied, his gaze locking with Valrin's. To see if you were ready to join us, or if you would be better served by staying in the shadows, as we once did. And if we're not ready, Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kale's expression darkened. Then this will be your final journey. The projection flickered, and the energy field outside began to shift, closing in around the ship. The pressure on the hull intensified, and alarms blared as the system strained to keep up. Valrin stepped forward, his resolve hardening. Enough games, he said. If you want to test us, then test us. But we didn't come this far to turn back. Kale's image faded, his voice lingering in the air. So be it. The energy field pulsed, and a blinding light consumed the bridge. For a moment, everything was silent, weightless. Then, just as suddenly, the light receded, and the crew found themselves staring at a new vista. The structures were gone, replaced by a vast, open void filled with stars that burned brighter and closer than any they had ever seen. Valrin turned to his crew, his expression a mix of determination and grim resolve. Whatever happens next, he said, we face it together. And as the ship drifted into the unknown, the crew knew one thing for certain. They had crossed a threshold from which there was no return.